One of my favorite books, not just one of my favorite children's books, but one of my favorite books is The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. It's the kind of story that resonates with people of all ages, blending a whimsical narrative with a profound environmental message. As someone once put it, it's about responsibility, empathy, and standing up for nature. A particular quote of the Lorax has been on my mind today as I reflect on this morning's Parsha Vayigash. When the Onceler demands to know who dares to challenge him, the Lorax responds, "I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues." The Lorax is their voice. Now, it got me to wonder, who speaks for us? Who speaks for the Jews today? Who speaks for the Jewish people? Who do you think? Just shout out some names of people you think that... Reb Steve, thank you very much. Your check's in the mail. I'm sorry? Douglas Murray, who's not even Jewish, is speaking for the Jews. Right? Who else? What? Anthony Housefather. Okay? Marco Mendocino, Melissa Lantzman, right? Polyev. Who else? Who? Rosie DiMano, right? What about Noah Tishby? Right? Noah Tishby. It's interesting, nobody said Prime Minister Netanyahu. Nobody said Yair Lapid or any of the Israeli leaders as speaking for the Jewish people. Sija, and others. Now, the reason that there are so many opportunities that we put out there is because it's an open question. Who holds the responsibility of speaking for the Jewish people today? Now, this question isn't new. Joseph grappled with it 3,000 years ago in this morning's Parsha. When his family, his entire clan, migrates to Egypt, Joseph has to present Bnei Yisrael to Pharaoh, the ruler of the most powerful nation on earth at that time. The Torah tells us, "Umiksei echav lakach chamisha anashim," and Joseph carefully selected a few of his brothers, vayatzigem lifnei Pharaoh, and presented them to Pharaoh. The Torah never specifies which of the brothers he presents. So who would you choose? The oldest? The wisest? The best dressed? Your favorites? It's hard to say. For Joseph in particular, considering his relationship with his brothers, he might not have been so fond about any of them, except perhaps for Benjamin. But the Torah is clear. He chooses 5. In trying to understand which 5 perhaps Joseph chose, Yaakov ben Asher, who's known as the Tor, a scholar from 13th century Spain, suggests that Joseph selected the most prominent of his brothers, those with stature, with strength, and leadership qualities. The Torah interprets the word miksei as related to katzin, meaning a leader or an officer. Even today, the word katzin in modern Hebrew is a term for a military officer in the IDF. According to the Torah, Joseph aimed to impress Pharaoh with leaders who exuded power and presence. Sforno, an Italian commentator writing a century later, takes the complete opposite point of view. He argues that Joseph picked the weakest and the least imposing of his brothers, those who would pose no threat to Pharaoh or to Egypt. For Sforno, the word miksei is connected to the word ketzat, meaning small or little. So who's right? Who's right? Perhaps we can find an answer in reflecting on the historical context that these two rabbis lived in. The Torah lived in a time in which the Jewish community of Spain was at its height, at its apex, at its climax, holding positions of power and influence. Jews were even ministers of finance and of foreign policy. And these powerful Jewish figures, they had their own Jewish courts and councils. They felt strong and secure, and they didn't hesitate to present themselves to the larger society in this way. The Torah's perspective, therefore, may reflect or mirror an era of confidence and prominence of the Jewish people within that time period of Spain. But Sforno lived a century later, already through the aftermath of the expulsion and Inquisition from Spain, witnessing the struggles of the Jewish refugees who had come upon Italy. Perhaps his view reflects a time when projecting too much power might provoke hostility or expulsion. How do we feel today in our own society? What is the image that we as a community want to project? We live in a unique moment in Jewish history, a unique moment, a moment in which we actually have quite a bit of power. We've reclaimed sovereignty in our ancestral homeland in Israel, where we have a strong, sometimes aggravating democracy, but certainly a powerful military. In the West, where in the Jewish world today, 45% of the Jewish world lives in Israel, about 45% lives in the United States and Canada, and 10% live everywhere else in the world. Right? So in Israel, we're strong, and in the West, we're strong as well. We thrive in societies built upon freedom and equality. We hold influential positions in politics, in business, and in society. And yet, at this moment, in Israel, and certainly here in the West, we're facing rising anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. We're seeing the beginnings, hopefully it'll be squashed, but we see the beginnings of potential violence being imposed against Jewish institutions and against Jews, the sharpest increase of anti-Semitism in generations. It has us feeling vulnerable. We feel both strong and we feel weak. So who speaks for us? Who speaks for us? Michael Kerzner, Michael Levitt, Robin Urbach, Jewish Voices for Peace, rabbis. The answer is, in a society that is open and free, in one that is connected as ours is through the internet, where communication does not sit in any one centralized hub, the answer of who speaks for us is we do. We speak for us. Today, all of us have the opportunity, and I would add the responsibility, to speak for us as Jews. In Canada, each of us has a voice, and we must use it, not just in government, but in our workplaces, in our schools, and in our social circles. Speaking for ourselves, by the way, isn't just about using words. It's about showing up. It's about leaning into our Jewish tradition and practices freely, showing up in shul on Shabbat and on the holidays, supporting Israel through UJA and other organizations, standing up for it, criticizing it constructively when necessary, and visiting it. There's no need to choose 5 representatives in our day and age, for today we all represent the Jewish people. Our actions and our voices matter. Who did Joseph choose? We may never know. But today, the choice is clear. We choose ourselves. Our actions will define who speaks for us as Jews. Shabbat Shalom.